Welcome to Crypto Simulation Theory. I'm the Gaussian Snake. Tonight I'm going to talk about why I feel a dump from Bitcoin is the most probable outcome heading into the last few days of the month for September and potentially even into the first week or so of October. I want to be clear that my base case for quarter four is very bullish. But I think before the true bull run begins, we are likely to see a dump. And it's going to throw everybody off guard. And people are going to feel like hopeless that we're heading into a recession when in fact it's just the final shakeout before things get really, really bullish. So this is what I think. It's not financial advice. I'll show you everything from a pure TA perspective. Yes, there's some macroeconomic events coming up like unemployment data and stuff like that, PCE in the next few weeks, but we're not going to focus on that tonight. We're going to just focus on the charts. I encourage you to follow me in my Telegram group, the Snake Pit, for the latest and greatest information about the markets. Interact with me and other analysts there as well. It's a great place to be. So let's go ahead and get started and take a look at what the charts have to tell us about Bitcoin. So I have the weekly time frame pulled up, and I wanted to point out a few things that look a little bit bearish. And this is not at all obvious. And in fact, I haven't even really been able to read this chart that well until probably like an hour ago. Um, so you can see we did get a bullish cross on the Gunnar EMA, turning this into a bull market support band. But one thing I noticed is that the Gaussian ribbon has started to turn red. And it's very, very subtle right now. And this could, of course, change. We are in a new week, and there's no telling what happens with this weekly close. This could just shoot right up, invalidating this red. But I think this red is going to actually hold. We've had two green bubbles in a row, and it's not very common to get a third one when you've had two. Not to say it can't happen, but just speaking in terms of past history, I mean, I could go show you that you don't typically see more than two green bubbles in a row. Let me put this on auto so that I don't have to scroll so much. But you can see here, just one green bubble in a lot of cases, right? Dating all the way back to 2011, one green bubble. Here you had one. Here you had one, 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 one. And for the first time, we actually almost, I mean, technically this is one green bubble, okay? It is technically one green bubble. Almost two, right? Similar to I think what was it, like 2013-ish time frame, right? So we have a red one forming, and this is of a little bit of concern. We also have a parabolic SAR downtrend still in effect on the weekly time frame. Okay, so this is a parabolic SAR downtrend. And to break this downtrend, we need to be able to have a weekly close come in above 67.3K. Now, this could very well happen and blow my theory out of the water, and give us another third green bubble in here. It could happen. So keep that in mind. Now, I was looking at an indicator called the True Strength Index. And when your indicator crosses the zero line, that's typically a buy signal. Okay, the last time this happened was in March of 2023, just a few months after Bitcoin had bottomed. And it has been above this line ever since. But notice that this average, this signal line has actually flipped down. And when did that flip occur? It occurred in April, okay, shortly after our top that we put in. It's just going down, 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 and we're right by the zero line. Now we have not crossed under this zero line since January of 2022. It's been a really, really long time. And that marked the start of a bear market. So are we going to cross under this? I mean, let's go back to 2019 and see what happened back then. We actually did get a cross. Okay. In November of 2019, we had a cross, went down just for a couple months, came back up, only to go down again. And that double bottom marked the start of our bull run. Okay. And so it's a strange place to be in. You don't usually find yourself in this location during the middle of a bull run. You find it more on your way into a bear market. But I do think that we are going to see the bull run return in quarter four. But I think we might have to come down into this below zero region briefly before that happens. So we are very far below the signal line. And you can see that back in 2019, a similar phenomenon occurred where we were very far below the signal line. We had a cross below zero to pop back above it, cross below zero to pop back above it. This is usually what happens when you're below the signal line, okay? especially this close to zero. And you can see in 2016, we spent some time just riding the signal line. If you go back to 2013, we never even went underneath it. So we are potentially about to go underneath the signal line. And what that would correspond to price wise for Bitcoin is my red zone. So my red zone is 42K, 51K. And the reason why it's such a wide range is because there's quite a different number of support zones in here. And also my logarithmic regression analysis that I've done on the Bitcoin price chart, which kind of identified 42 to 46K as a potential price target as well. So we have some signs that are only visible when you zoom out. If you look at the daily time frame looks quite bullish. So again, this could be easily invalidated a week from now, and you could all be laughing at my video, but I have to report on what I'm seeing. So I wanted to also pull up an important metric to kind of further corroborate what's now. It's a really simple metric, but the weighted logarithmic Bollinger Band has been widening on the weekly. Typically, you don't see big moves to the upside on a widening Bollinger Band. Typically you're going to see continued volatility, but the impulsive moves normally come when you see more of a contraction, which we're not really seeing right now. You can see right here that we had the Bollinger Bands starting to contract before we got our impulsive move. If we go back in time to 2019, 2020, we were riding above the Bollinger Band median line for a while before we got that upward impulsive move. But notice what happened when the Bollinger Band started to widen a little bit. We actually had a pretty big dump. So that's a bear market. I really don't want to look at too many previous examples because there's not a lot of great ones other than 2019. Over here where we got that dump. So that's just something to keep in mind is that these Bollinger Bands are widening, which is a reflection of just the price volatility. And, so it is possible we get one more leg down in these Bollinger Bands into this region before we truly get that massive pump. So that's thirdly, or not, no, thirdly, I've done a lot of things. So more than thirdly, our moving averages, these are the whole moving averages, are not stacked from least to greatest. You've got the 100 week above the 50 week. We had that death cross on August 19th that played out. We're hitting resistance right now at the 50 week. We've been holding support on the 200 week for quite a bit, which is a good sign. But there is a potential to break down from this 200 week. If we go back to 2019, let's take a look at how we broke down beneath it. And, the bull market was still on shortly after that. So I think it's possible we do break down beneath this 200 week and get into this red zone. Um, Seeing these moving averages, they haven't had time to sort themselves out. And I think probably, a little bit of downside time before we start to head back up makes the most sense, especially because our buy volume hasn't been that impressive. Like if I go to the YCOB buy and sell volume momentum indicator, you know, you'll see that it just kind of shows a decreasing trend in the strength of the volume, right? Like it's going down, came up in 2024, going back down. So I almost feel like it needs to just bottom out a little bit. I don't know if it has to extend into 2025. I'm still calling for a bullish quarter four. Like I said, maybe it doesn't bottom until like mid to late October, and then maybe in November it starts trending up, or maybe in mid October it starts trending up. I just don't see the giant spike in buy volume just coming out of nowhere. Um, I if you go back to 2019, like you'll see that this was the bear market, right? We kind of came up into April and then kind of came down, and then we came up again into August and then trended down, down, down. So, and it really wasn't until March where this picked up, but it didn't pick up on green momentum, it picked up on red momentum. So, this has just been trending down and down and down, and some of that just has to do with the capitalization of Bitcoin. Okay. So that's another thing to kind of look at that makes me think maybe we need just a little bit more downtime in the market before we see a major impulsive move up. The weekly wave trend does oscillator does seem like it's picking up some strength. Okay, like you see that we hit this like top level in April and then came down in June, put in a lower high, formed a head and shoulders pattern, broke below the neckline of that head and shoulders, popped up in July briefly, and it just seems like we're popping back up again, but I don't see us just rocketing off from here. Like, I honestly think this probably needs to roll over a little bit more. And I do draw comparisons to 2019. Like in 2019, we had to go pretty well below the zero line before we got rolling again. I don't think we'll necessarily need as much time as in 2019 to start to, move upwards, but I think we're going to need some time. So, I'm seeing all these indicators kind of point to the same thing. One thing that'd be good to look at is the ATR and the OBV, the average true range and the on balance volume, and kind of see what those are telling us. Okay, so this is concerning. We have the average true range trending down while price is trending up, and the on balance volume is just flat. There's a high probability that this resolves to the downside. That's how you would interpret those metrics. Nothing is really telling me that we're off to the races just yet. Okay, we need to be patient. We need to have some cash on the side to take advantage of deals should they materialize. Um, I mean, again, this is not a crystal ball, but it's saying probability is to a downside move first. The other thing too, and if you're in my Telegram group, I had a lengthy discussion on this today, is the ADX and DI, or the average directional index, and bullish and bearish trend strengths. Right now, we have the red DI above the green DI, which is fundamentally bearish. However, we have some convergence happening, which means the bulls are, getting some power in here, but we're not convinced yet that this trend is over. So notice that the trend strength is at around 12 and a half, which is not a very strong trend. And it looks like it's starting to bottom out, which is a good sign that we can see some volatility start to return to the market. But it probably needs to actually go through this bottoming process, which could take us into election season, okay, before we start to trend up in a more meaningful way. Now, it does look like there's like a head and shoulders pattern forming on the red DI, which is a good sign that our bearishness is probably going to break down fairly soon, but there's no guarantee that it has to right now. If we look back in 2019, we got this crisscrossing happening again with very low volatility, and it took quite a while before that volatility returned, and it returned on a bearish move. So, I don't know if that's, this is not 2019, so we can't like really compare everything to the past. We do know that our bearish momentum has stalled down, right? It has slowed down here. Not stalled, but it's slowed down. And, who knows what's going to happen from here, but all I can tell you is that whatever does happen, right now it's just not very volatile. We would want to see kind of this move in a different direction, see some more volatility. If we look at our relative volatility index, or RVI, you know, um, what can we see there? You can see that volatility has been picking up, and we've had some upside volatility, which is good, but this looks like it's probably just another lower high, and we might just come right back down. So I think we've probably seen enough here, right, for my thesis, which is, as follows. Okay, so again, let me go through my thesis, my prediction. Remember, predictions are a dime a dozen. I don't think mine is any more special than anyone else's. But what I'm kind of foreseeing is a dump to make September a red month. And potentially this dump could last into October. And I don't know where this is going to stop, but I'm guessing somewhere around 47, 46K. I don't think we have to go to 42K. And then I think, maybe heading into November, we kind of, come out of this. And then I just don't know how this is going to materialize. Okay. But something along these lines, pumping really strong into the new year. Okay. And then I think from there, I honestly don't know what's going to happen. So I'm just going to leave it. You like that screwed up arrow? I'm just going to leave it like that. Okay. For now. So this is kind of what I think. We're going to get a dump and then a pump. And another reason for the pump is because I mean, there's a lot of reasons. I've gone over them in previous videos, but when we've had death crosses of the 50, just to go back to this metric, death cross of the 50 and 100, there's always been a pump. It's always happened every single time. This isn't the only reason why I believe this, but it's one of the reasons. You can see death cross, pump, right? Death cross, pump. Death cross, pump. That wasn't a very convincing pump. This was a golden cross. Death cross, pump. And again, that wasn't a very convincing pump, but it was still technically a pump. And then here we had a death cross, no, golden cross, but this here would have been a death cross pump. Okay. And some of these were on bear markets, right? So every time there has been a pump. So far, we have not seen that pump. I would not call this the pump into the death cross. If it was, that's pretty sad. Okay. There's usually a change in trend pump that takes you, a little bit higher for a little longer. So I still think we've got to come down into this final dump. And I think when we test this zone in here, it's been tested so many times. I think that's going to mark our turning point where we really start to take off and enter into this green zone and take out this high. As to like how much longer the bull market is going to last, that's really anyone's guess. If I go to the, I'm not going to address that here either. If I go to the reverse momentum oscillator, one of my favorite metrics, notice that we have turned green. This is significant. Turning green is no easy feat. So if this stays green, right, we don't know if this is going to stay green. It has crossed the zero line, which is impressive. If this stays green and we have a huge impulsive move, this could invalidate my entire theory. Okay, we have had a series of higher lows, right? Like this low, higher low, but we've also been putting in higher highs, and we did print a lower high here. So we had high, lower high, lower high, lower high. What if this is just another lower high that takes us down even lower, but we still print like maybe a macro like here? I think it's always best to draw this out. But what if this little bit of green is just a little itty bitty bit of green, and we come down here to print a macro higher low and then take off, right? What if that happens? And so this structure, this overall bullish structure is still intact. Okay, and I would need to move this up just a little bit to keep on the trend line, but I was just eyeballing it, so I probably should have drawn the line first. That would have made sense, right? Okay. I seem to always like to do things the hard way. All right, so something like that, okay, could play out, and that would satisfy the need for that final dump that could take place. I don't know that it would take place all the way through November, maybe, or even be this low, right? I honestly don't know. Maybe it can be a little bit higher, print like a higher low from this low too. Like that's also possible. So that I can't tell you, but I don't think we're about to head straight up right now. Now we have printed quite a bit of red, okay. So my call for another dump is risky. Okay, but and keep in mind, like this is just my prediction. Like I said, it's not something that is really that important to me in the grand scheme of things because, like, if you go on the chart, right, I'm still calling for a very bullish quarter four at some point in quarter four that we're going to have really bullish activity, potentially spilling over into 2025. So we may have to endure one last drop, and I think if we look at the fear and greed index, it's on here somewhere. I have so many of these. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on one second. Fear and greed really hasn't spent that much time in extreme fear, okay, in terms of weeks. Doesn't have to. We did get up to extreme greed though at one point. So you've seen this sort of trend of lower highs, right? That's been happening. If we go back to 2019, what did we see happening? That we did have to spend a little bit of time in extreme fear at these lower levels to really get the bull going. Okay, here it is in 2021 after that the summer lull. We had to spend some time at these really low levels, right? And we just haven't done that. We've been bouncing every single time at these extreme fears. So I think the most likely path is down at this point for the short term. Okay. And I've given you my reasons. Do you agree with these, or do you think I'm being too bearish? Again, this is short term. This is not long term. Long term, I am still very bullish. Well, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining me for Crypto Simulation Theory. I'm the Gaussian Snake. Join my free Telegram, Snake Pit, to join in discussions like this one that we're having right here. And be sure to subscribe to my channel if you enjoy the content and would like to have more content like this. Remember, none of this is financial advice, and price predictions are just for entertainment purposes only, maybe for planning purposes to sort of like hedge against. If you're being really, really bullish right now, I think it's good to have a hedge and maybe a little bit of cash on the side just to take advantage of any dips that materialize, or to not freak out if a dip does happen and think this is it, this is the end, right? I'm not seeing any signs of that. And if we do get really bullish, you can just laugh at this video and say that I was wrong and, just count it as one more thing that I didn't predict correctly. But predictions are not as valuable as a plan. Okay. So having a plan is a lot more important than whatever predictions I'm going to make. And if you want to have more information about how to make a plan to do well in crypto, join my Snake Pit Telegram. There are people in there who have some really solid plans that are these are people who have studied the best crypto traders of all time. And these are people who've won like major competitions. They've studied their methods and techniques and come up with some really robust um, strategies for navigating this market. And I have my own as well that I'm happy to share in the Telegram. So just join me there. All right, that'll be it for today. Till next time, have a great week and safe trading.